Education has become one of the most fiercely debated political battlegrounds. Billions of pounds of our money are poured into schools every year. But there's an aspect of education that is rarely questioned, a slow, creeping change in the makeup of our schools. 1/3 are now faith schools.
I did. I converted to Catholicism.
For the sake of your child?
For the sake of my child.
If you come to our school, they're very much open minds.
What we are trying to indoctrinate is a view that faith matters.
Some say parents must be able to educate their child in their faith.
Do you believe that parents have the human right to choose the education for their children or not?
Others fear this is limiting and divisive.
To separate yourself off from the rest of humanity is deeply, deeply tragic.
Isn't it time for our society to rethink what is best for children?
I want to explore the balance of rights between a parent's right to educate a child in their own faith and the children's rights to determine their own beliefs and approach the world with a genuinely open mind.
One in 3 state schools in our country is now a faith school, a school with formal links to a religion. These schools have extraordinary privileges. Because 60 years ago, churches provided half the money for their schools, many were allowed to discriminate on religious grounds in selecting pupils based on parents' faith and in recruiting staff. They could also have the freedom to teach their own syllabus of religious education, RE. Today, we taxpayers fund the running of these schools and also pay up to 90% of the cost of building them. But the problem is the churches held on to their special powers in their schools. And then the government under Tony Blair made a decision that changed Britain forever. It oversaw the foundation of over 100 new faith schools, including Muslim, Hindu and Sikh schools, along with 42 academies sponsored by Christian organisations.
A big man for a big job. Charles Clarke's waited a long time for this.
This man was Education Secretary under Blair. Why did he open the floodgates?
You could say, well, we're only going to keep it that you have Christian and a tiny proportion of other faith schools. I think that leads you into serious risk of discrimination in relation to saying it's okay to have a Christian faith school, but for the sake of argument, not a Muslim faith school, which I think is not acceptable, and therefore you've got to have the same rule for all.
I understand Charles Clarke's desire not to discriminate against minority religions. I agree we need one rule for all, but I think the government turned the wrong way. It should have abolished the faith component altogether, not rolled out more faith schools.
Now, you can make a logical argument, I completely understand it. In fact, I first was a co-author of a pamphlet about this in 1978, which says abolish all faith schools. But I think you've then got to look at how that relates to what the population as a whole feel about faith schools themselves.
Well, you wouldn't have to abolish them, you would just stop supporting them with government money.
Well, that's the same as abolishing them. I mean,
anybody, yes.
You can go. I mean, the net effect of this would be to close thousands of schools.
Let the schools remain, but abolish the separation between Catholic, Protestant, etc.
No, but you're saying take the money away from a school which has that narrative.
Yes,
and
but the school could stay. It's got the same building, same teachers.
No, I understand,
else.
but you're taking away 90% of their revenue funding. Closing these schools, which I think is the effect of what you say, is something that wouldn't be accepted.
But it's their decision to close it. I mean, they have the option.
Okay, so I'm Secretary of State for Education, and 4,000 schools are closed by, okay, their decision, not my decision. But as a result of what I said, hypothetically, waving your big stick, which you've offered me, I don't think that the society would accept that.
Having been a key player in this huge gamble with our country's education system, you'd hope there'd be more enthusiasm and conviction in Charles Clarke's backing for faith schools. In fact, we find he used to be against faith schools, and his main defence of them now seems to be that voters wouldn't agree to abolishing them. And I'm not at all convinced Charles Clarke is right about public feeling. In fact, we commissioned an ICM opinion poll that showed a clear majority, 59%, still believe that schools should be for everyone, regardless of religion, and the government should not be funding faith schools of any kind. I believe the government must act and take the faith out of faith schools.